So picture a secure boardroom in Washington, D.C. It's the spring of 1956.
Okay, setting the scene.
Right, and you have these top-level military brass from the Office of Naval Research. These are guys who spend their days analyzing Soviet submarine capabilities and cutting-edge aerospace engineering.
Some serious guys.
Dead serious. And they're gathered around a table, passing around a cheap, mass-market sci-fi paperback.
Which is just such a wild image right off the bat.
It really is. The book arrived in a manila envelope postmarked from a small town in Texas with the words Happy Easter scrawled across the front.
So bizarre.
Yeah, and inside the pages are heavily defaced. I mean, 3 different people have used 3 different colors of ink to just have this sprawling, highly technical conversation in the margins.
Just casually discussing extraterrestrial factions and magnetic force fields.
Exactly, and the tragic consequences of top-secret Navy invisibility experiments.
Yeah, the visual of Admiral N. Firth, who's the chief of naval research at the time, poring over these chaotic, multicolored scribbles is deeply unsettling. Because the military didn't dismiss this as a prank.
They took it seriously.
Very seriously. They stepped in, took possession of the book, and actually handed it over to a defense contractor called the Varo Manufacturing Company.
Oh.
Yeah, and Varo had a secretary laboriously retype the entire book. She ran the pages through a duplicator twice just to make sure all those mysterious margin notes were preserved in red ink.
That is dedication.
I mean, they printed a very limited run specifically for distribution among military brass.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack what has to be one of the most bizarre and heavily layered documents in the history of UFO lore. It's known as the case for the UFO Varo edition.
It's a dense one.
It is. We're looking at a fascinating stack of sources here. The foundation is the original text written by an astronomer named M.K. Jessup. Layered on top of that are these highly disturbing letters sent to Jessup by a mysterious man named Carlos Allende.
The Allende Letters, yeah.
And most crucially, we have the Varo edition itself, which contains that massive set of handwritten annotations added to Jessup's book by 3 unknown individuals who just refer to themselves as Mr. A, Mr. B, and Gem A.
Right.
So we're going to explore why the military cared what Jessup originally claimed and the incredibly detailed mythology these 3 annotators built in the margins.
Yeah, and to understand why this annotated Varo edition exists in the first place, we really have to look at the catalyst.
Yeah.
Because before the book was ever mailed to the Navy, Jessup received a series of letters from Carlos Miguel Allende.
Right.
And based on the handwriting and the spelling errors and the bizarre phraseology, the consensus is that Allende was actually the annotator known in the margins as Mr. A.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so he writes to Jessup with this absolutely wild claim about a 1943 U.S. Navy experiment that supposedly weaponized Albert Einstein's unified field theory.
And the unified field theory is super crucial here for you listening, because Einstein spent the latter half of his life trying to find a single mathematical framework that would link the fundamental forces of nature, specifically gravity and electromagnetism.
Right, trying to tie it all together.
Exactly. Because if you can mathematically prove they are 2 sides of the same coin, then theoretically, if you can manipulate an electromagnetic field, you can also manipulate gravity.
Which changes everything.
It really does. And Allende claims that in October of 1943, the Navy figured out the practical application of this. They allegedly wrapped a destroyer-type ship in a hypermagnetic field to bend light around it.
Like a mirage.
Yeah. And they successfully made the ship and its entire crew completely invisible at sea.
And what's fascinating here is that Allende isn't writing to boast about a military triumph. He's actually writing to warn Jessup.
A warning.
Yeah. The letters detail a horrific aftermath. Allende claims that while the physics worked and the ship vanished, the biological toll on the crew was just an absolute disaster.
Oh, man.
By wrapping a ship in an artificial field strong enough to bend light, which again is like a mirage over a hot highway, but exponentially more powerful, the Navy subjected human bodies and minds to forces they just weren't built to withstand.
Right.
Half the officers and crew supposedly went completely mad.
And Allende describes this condition he calls a deep freeze. Basically, sailors who had been exposed to the field would just suddenly get stuck.
Wait, like physically frozen?
Yeah, physically paralyzed. The underlying logic Allende pushes is that the intense magnetic field desynchronized the sailors' subatomic particles from our local space-time continuum.
Oh, wow.
So they weren't just paralyzed, they were trapped in a different temporal frame.
That is terrifying.
It gets worse. They couldn't move of their own volition unless 2 or more other crew members who had also survived the experiment quickly came over and laid hands on them.
Like physically grounding them.
Exactly, physically grounding them back into our time frame. And if they didn't get help, they were just trapped in this netherworld of altered time perception.
Yeah, he mentions one man taking 6 months to be unfrozen.
6 months.
Right,
Wow.
requiring millions of dollars in electronic equipment just to pull his molecular structure back into phase with reality.
Mm-hmm.
And he even describes the most terrifying detail of all, which is spontaneous combustion.
Okay, let's untack this, because if I'm being completely honest, this sounds exactly like a script for a sci-fi B-movie.
It totally does.
I mean, we have the Navy Einstein's discarded theories, invisible ships and sailors freezing in time or bursting into flames. Why would Jessup, who is a guy with a legitimate background in astronomy and mathematics, or the U.S. Navy for that matter, take this seriously?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of what Jessup was already working on, Allende's timing was terrifyingly perfect.
How so?
In his original book, Jessup was independently theorizing about alternative space propulsion. He was arguing that chemical rockets were a dead end, and that true space travel would require manipulating gravitational and magnetic fields.
Oh, I see.
So then out of nowhere, he gets these letters from Allende detailing the exact physics he was theorizing, telling him you were exactly right about the math, and I know this because the government already tried it.
So Allende is essentially serving as a dark validation for Jessup. It is as if someone read your theoretical physics paper and wrote back saying, I saw the military test this and it melts people.
Exactly.
So because Allende's letters hinted at this hidden world of manipulated physics, Jessup started looking for evidence that intelligent forces were already operating in our atmosphere using these exact same gravitational tricks.
Right. He started compiling anomalies that orthodox science kind of just sweeps under the rug.
Yeah, Jessup focuses heavily on historical erratics. Things falling from the sky that simply do not fit the accepted models of meteorology.
And we aren't talking about hail or dust here.
No, definitely not. We are talking about a chunk of ice, 20 feet in circumference, falling in Scotland in 1849.
20 feet.
Massive. He compiles records of thousands of eels, specific types of frogs, and unknown marine fish just dumping out of clear skies onto localized areas.
Yeah, and the most famous example he pulls is the Bath County meat shower.
Oh my gosh, the meat shower.
Yeah, in March of 1876 in Kentucky, 2 men were standing outside under a perfectly clear sky when a shower of raw beef flakes fell over an area roughly 50 by 100 yards.
That is just so gross.
It is. Later analysis of the flakes suggested it was lung tissue, possibly from a horse or a human infant.
Which makes it worse. And orthodox science usually blames whirlwinds or tornadoes picking up debris and dropping it elsewhere. But Jessup points out the mechanical flaw in that logic.
Right, a whirlwind does not selectively sort its debris.
Exactly. It doesn't pick up only pure raw meat, strip away all the dirt, twigs, and grass, and deposit just the meat miles away.
So this raises an important question, right?
Yeah.
If it's not whether, what is the mechanism? Jessup synthesizes this data and theorizes these are deliberate dumps from celestial hydroponic tanks.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, he argues that there are space islands hovering in our own Earth-Moon system. Specifically, he identifies the gravitational neutral point between the Earth, Sun, and Moon, which is about 165,000 miles away.
Right, so that neutral point is essentially a Lagrange point. It's a location in space where the combined gravitational pull of two large masses, like the Earth and the Moon, precisely equals the centripetal force required for a small object to move with them.
It acts like a cosmic parking spot.
Exactly. Things can sit there indefinitely without burning fuel to stay in orbit. And Jessup believes a superior intelligence parked massive motherships in these zones, using our planet to restock their biological supplies or simply dump their waste.
Which bridges perfectly into his next major argument, because if they are parked out there now, how long have they been watching us?
Right, the antiquity of intelligence. Jessup digs into this to prove it isn't a recent phenomenon. He gathers accounts of artifacts that completely shatter the accepted timeline of human history.
Yeah, he cites a perfect grooved iron-nickel cube found inside a 300,000-year-old tertiary coal bed in Austria.
A 300,000-year-old cube.
Yeah. He mentions a silver inlaid bell blown out of solid pudding stone rock in Massachusetts, and an optical crystal lens found deep in the ancient ruins of Nineveh.
It's just wild. Let me put that in perspective for you. It's like an archaeologist today digging up a velociraptor skeleton and finding a fully functional lithium-ion smartphone embedded seamlessly inside the fossilized bone.
You're forced into a corner at that point.
Right. You either have to completely ignore the physical evidence in front of you, or you have to rewrite everything you know about planetary history.
And Jessup chooses to rewrite history. He links the falling erratics to the ancient artifacts and concludes that our current civilization is likely a second wave following some lost ancient race that developed advanced spaceflight, or we have just been continuously monitored for millennia by extraterrestrials.
We also need to understand how deeply Jessup's theories were influenced by the era he was living in, right? I mean, it was the 1950s, the absolute height of the Cold War and atomic anxiety.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Jessup actually theorized that the sudden modern uptick in UFO sightings was happening because these space dwellers were terrified.
Terrified of us.
Yeah, terrified that reckless human atomic testing would disrupt the electromagnetic fields of the planet, or worse, blow up the Earth. He even floated the theory in his book that Russia might have secretly captured a UFO and was using their own atomic research merely as a diversion while they reverse-engineered the gravity drives.
I want to be incredibly clear with you on this point real quick. We are strictly impartially reporting Jessup's theories here to understand the context of the book. We are absolutely not endorsing any of these geopolitical conspiracies.
No, not at all.
It is simply fascinating to see how Jessup projected human Cold War paranoia, the fear of hidden weapons and espionage onto the cosmos. He takes the falling meat, the ancient cubes, and the Cold War arms race, and tries to guess at the mechanics of the universe.
But here's where the story pivots from curious to completely unhinged. Because the three annotators in the margins of his book, Mr. A, Mr. B, and Jemmy, they write as if they don't need to guess at all.
We already know.
Yeah, they read Jessup's hypotheses, and they write back claiming they already know the absolute truth. The margin notes are the core of the Varo edition's mythology.
And these three individuals carry on a running dialogue across the pages, right?
Yes. They claim to be gypsies, referring to themselves as a discredited people, but they possess a vocabulary completely alien to the traditional UFO literature of the time.
It reads like they share a private internal wiki that they expect each other to just understand. They casually drop terms like measure markers, force cutters, and magnetic net.
Right, and they organize the beings in space into two distinct factions, the LMs and the SMs.
Okay, break that down for us.
The LMs are the little men. The annotators describe them as peaceful, philosophical beings who actually prefer hanging out in France because they appreciate the cultural atmosphere.
Oh, of course they do.
The SMs, on the other hand, are the sinister men. And this brings us back to the Bath County meat shower.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
The annotators actually address that exact historical event in the margins.
Right.
They claim that the SMs eat such a revolting amount of seafood in space that they occasionally go completely mad with a craving for red meat.
Wait, so the meat shower was...
Yeah, the annotators imply the SMs use their technology to synthesize biological material. And that shower of beef wasn't a whirlwind. It was the SMs indiscriminately dumping their synthetic food waste over Kentucky after a feeding frenzy.
That is just, I mean, that's a lot to process. But they don't just talk about alien diets, do they?
No, they actively confirm and expand on Jessup's theories about gravity and magnetism, explaining the actual science of how it's done.
Right. They write about ancient civilizations they call the Etruscan Lemurians, claiming these ancients use highly specific magnetic floor patterns to levitate massive objects and shape metal.
And the mechanics they describe are fascinating. They state that Earth's gravity isn't a simple pull, it's a pervasive field. By laying out specific magnetic floor patterns, these ancients could create an interference pattern.
Think of it like noise-canceling headphones, but for gravity.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, noise-canceling headphones listen to the sound waves coming at you and broadcast the exact opposite wave to cancel it out, creating silence. The annotators claim these magnetic floor patterns broadcast an opposing magnetic frequency that cancels out the local gravitational field.
Creating a localized node.
Exactly, a bubble of zero gravity, where a massive stone block weighs absolutely nothing and can be moved by a single person. They tell Jessup he is incredibly close to the truth when he connects magnetism to gravity.
And because they possess this secret knowledge of space-time manipulation, their view of modern human engineering is utterly dismissive.
So what do they think of human space programs?
Throughout the margins, they basically just mock humanity's pride and our reliance on rocket science. They call our attempts at jet propulsion a farce.
A farce.
Yeah, they point out that using explosive chemical fuel for both energy and mass ejection is primitive, violent, and inherently limiting. I mean, you can only carry so much fuel before the weight of the fuel itself prevents you from leaving the atmosphere.
They look at our rockets the way we would look at someone trying to paddle a wooden canoe across the Pacific Ocean.
Very much.
Sure, you are technically in the water, but you don't understand the currents. You have no navigation, and you are going to exhaust yourself before you even get out of the bay.
But their critique of humanity isn't just about our bad engineering. They state quite bluntly that humanity will never truly achieve advanced space travel because of our emotional structure.
Our emotional structure.
Yeah, they believe our vanity, our ego, and our materialistic values prevent us from understanding the unified forces of the universe. To the annotators, manipulating gravity isn't just a math problem on a chalkboard. It requires a level of philosophical maturity.
Wow.
If you view the universe as a resource to be conquered, which is frankly how humanity views space, you will never be able to harmonize with the underlying magnetic fields required to travel it.
So what does this all mean? Let's take a step back and recap this incredible journey. We started with M.K. Jessup, a tragic astronomer desperately compiling lists of historical anomalies, meat falling from clear skies, out of place ancient artifacts, trying to prove a unified theory of gravity.
Which is a huge undertaking on its own.
Right. And that search triggers Carlos Allende to reveal a terrifying Navy invisibility experiment explaining the horrific biological mechanisms of freezing men in time through disrupted electromagnetic fields.
The deep freeze.
And all of this culminates in a surreal, multicolored dialogue in the margins of a paperback by annotators hiding in plain sight, casually explaining how to cancel out planetary gravity.
And remember, the military took it seriously enough to retype the whole thing, print it, and study it.
They really did.
It forces you to consider the nature of information authority and isolationism. Whether you believe the Varo edition is an elaborate hoax orchestrated by Allende, a shared delusion between eccentric minds, or a suppressed truth that the military was genuinely terrified of, it serves as a profound challenge.
A challenge to what we accept as fact.
Exactly. It challenges you to question the arrogance of orthodox science. It asks you to look at the erratics, the anomalies we sweep under the rug, simply because we don't currently possess the mathematical models to explain them. Jessup and the annotators suggest that true scientific breakthrough requires us to abandon our intellectual safe zones.
And it leaves you with one final haunting thought. In the very last margins of the book, the annotators talk about something called extraterrestrial clear talk.
Which is essentially telepathy.
Right, telepathy. They claim that humans can never engage in this clear talk, not because our brains are physically incapable of it, but because we lack the ability to see the beauty in each other's souls.
They argue that telepathy requires absolute vulnerability. I mean, if you can hear everyone's thoughts, you hear their pain, their fear, and their greed.
That would be overwhelming.
Totally. Because humanity is so emotionally immature and obsessed with materialistic values, opening our minds to clear talk would be deafening and destructive. We physically block ourselves from connecting because we can't handle our own empathy.
It's a striking indictment. It leaves you to ponder, what if the ultimate barrier to joining the wider cosmic neighborhood isn't our lack of unified field physics or our primitive chemical rockets?
What if the true barrier is our lack of empathy?
Yeah. What if we are just like those military officers staring at the used paperback? Looking at the margins of a universe we haven't even begun to understand, completely missing the real conversation happening right over our heads. Something for you to think about next time you look up at the stars.